Imagine you're sleeping in your home and then all of a sudden at 3 o'clock in the morning, you are awoken. The smell of smoke is in the air, smoke detectors are going off all across your home, and you can hear your neighbor's dog yelping in pain in an absolutely blood-curdling kind of way because there is a fire that has been set in and around your area and it is currently engulfing your homes. Out of desperation, knowing that there's not just a dog in that home, there's a dog owner, you grab a scooter and try to break into that particular property in order to save the woman that occupies that building and her dog, only to fail in that mission, only to realize that what you're actually encountering is a severe fire that actually took 26 firefighters in order to put it out. Now, luckily, in this particular case, the woman who occupied the dwelling where the dog was actually a doctor and she was working at the time. However, her dog Togo did end up dying in the blaze, and obviously you would want to know what ended up causing the fire. So of course there's 26 firefighters around right when this incident occurs, and you ask them what went down, and immediately they tell you something that you already knew was the cause in the back of your mind, that homeless encampment that has caused many of fires that you have been aware of in your time since they showed up in and around your property likely is the source of this. There's evidence to indicate that something flaming was thrown over a fence and it ended up catching fire, and that's what ultimately ended up starting the blaze. However, even though that's the obvious explanation, even though it was told to you directly by the firefighters on the ground, all of a sudden, a day later, the story changes. It's under investigation. It's under review. There is no mention of a homeless encampment, no mention of arson, or anything of the sort. In addition to that, this happened in April of 2021. And for some reason, now 4 years later, the fire still remains unsolved according to the books. Well, greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Sean, and today we're going to talk about the way that the city of Los Angeles is systematically covering up the origin of a bunch of different fires that are happening within their city because the fires are being caused by the homeless population that they're failing to manage. And by the way, we're up in and around 50% of the fires that are set in Los Angeles coming from these encampments, and yet we hear nothing about it or nowhere near the alarm that should be raised about it due to policy from the progressive Democrats that run the joint. Now look, we're going to get into this, we're going to break this down, but before we do, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay.
So the headline of the article where I'm getting a lot of this information from is from Real Clear Investigations, and it is entitled How Los Angeles is Getting Scorched by Its Homeless Population. And it is being written by a woman that I don't know if you guys are familiar with her. I don't know if you guys have ever heard her. Her name is Ana Kasparian, if you guys are aware. Some Armenian lady that works at some progressive news outlet that we may have discussed from time to time on this particular channel. But in all seriousness, this piece, which will be linked in full in the description, is an excellent breakdown of not only the problem with the homeless fires and the encampments that we're seeing across Los Angeles, but the cover-up, the fact that they're going out of their way to suppress the fact that so many of these fires are being set by the homeless population. You would think that a left wing that is obsessed with the 1% and how they're causing all these different various problems would think it would be notable that 1% of Los Angeles' population, i.e. the homeless population, actually less than 1%, is responsible for nearly 46% of all the fires that are being set within that city. So like I said in my open, originally with this fire, again back from 2021, the firefighters on the scene attributed it to the homeless encampment that was nearby that had been the source of many 911 calls related to fires that they had experienced. However, shortly after, they changed up their statement, and what they ended up putting out was something like this that is all too common for residents in the city of Los Angeles. And I just want to make something 100% clear. This is bureaucratic doublespeak for it was definitely the homeless people. They definitely did do. They are in fact guilty, but we can't say that right now because we feel so bad for those innocent Beba Angel Aladdins who are just cooking drugs and, you know, just throwing the flaming stuff all over the place, but it's not really their fault. It's society's fault. So the news statement had this, quote, "There's no evidence that indicates the involvement of a person experiencing homelessness." Isn't it funny how that works? You have all the people that live in that area that understand that these people were setting fires, in fact, they requested for a city dumpster to be removed from the area because homeless people were congregating around it, and then the homeless got more aggressive. There were 911 calls there about homeless-related fires, but all of a sudden, when the arson ends up killing a dog and burning a bunch of homes, which, by the way, I don't think I put the photo on screen for you. Let me show you the state of these properties post this particular fire. They don't have strong evidence, but it is under investigation that anybody experiencing homelessness, going through that process through no fault of their own, was responsible for this particular action. Again, absolutely shameful in every possible way, but this is policy in the city of Los Angeles. Make no mistake about it. The 2021 fire is now viewed by some Los Angeles residents as a symbol of the city's failure to control the spread of homeless encampments that have become a major cause of fires in the city. While LA's leaders have been quick to point to climate change and faulty power lines for the recent historic fires that razed large swaths of the city, critics say they have intentionally downplayed the role of the city's swelling homeless population. Now, it's very important for you guys to understand that there are multiple different causes for the fires that Los Angeles experiences. It happens to be a place that is ideal for the spread of wildfires. That just happens to be a fact. But we also have corrupt corporations, public-private partnerships that give a lot of money to politicians like PG&E that clearly are not maintaining their power infrastructure because they know that they will be backed up by scumbag politicians like Gavin Newsom if they end up not replacing something that costs $10, and that ends up causing one of the largest fires in Los Angeles history, or in California history, which is exactly what happened when a 100-year-old C-hook that again cost $10 to replace, that was suspending a power line, ended up snapping, and that ended up resulting in a fire where, by the way, those homeowners are still waiting for their homes to be rebuilt. And in fact, Gavin Newsom, being the absolute scumbag that he is, worked out a deal where these people would be paid in the devalued PG&E stock because, you know, you tend to lose investors when you cause major fires, so they have to root for the company that ended up screwing them over to do better in the market in order for them to get the money so that they can, you know, rebuild their homes that were damaged by the negligence of that company. So that's definitely real. That's definitely true. But the fact that they keep pointing to climate change, I think, is absolutely crucial to what's going on here, because if you can pin the increase in wildfires on climate change, that can help the government increase what they already want to do. Add more regulations, add more red tape, add more environmental restrictions, use that to restrict the supply of housing, and all the other different various things that California uses environmental regulations and laws in order to deal with as the justification, because we all must respect Mother Gaia, Mother Earth. And the fact is, if you could say, wow, we have so many more fires, even though a huge portion of them are caused by homeless people, must be climate change, we need more money and more control over the economy, that benefits the politicians. So yeah, this is absolutely disastrous, but the numbers absolutely don't lie. There are two different investigations that are highlighted in this particular article. One is from KCAL, one is from the local NBC affiliate, and they show the same exact thing, that homeless people are responsible for an ever-increasing amount of these fires in the state of California, and this includes small fires and big fires, by the way. And of course, the numbers are not small. 17,000 fires were started by homeless people, by homeless encampments, not all of them intentional, last year in 2024.
Whole aisleway down there.
He is an unhoused man, lighting fires, neighbors say, to live here beneath the cross. Homeowners went to both police and fire, concerned his campfires could burn out of control.
And what did they both say?
Well, they both said, basically, our hands are tied. There's nothing we can do at this point in time. Call us when there's a fire.
Call us when you have a fire?
Call us when there is a fire.
Pretty shocking.
It was totally shocking. 6 days after I went to the fire department at like 2:30 in the morning, the hillside's on fire. I was really scared. I was really nervous.
Even though firefighters did eventually douse these flames,
Just had multiple airdrops.
concern was still smoldering after authorities never connected the unhoused man he had seen to the fire. Yet another homeless man was arrested and charged, but those charges were eventually dropped.
That is up from 2023, which saw 14,000 such fires started by homeless people. And again, this includes intentional and non-intentional fires. And as the problems start to ramp up, the cover-up does as well. The firefighters are told to not mention the unhoused, the innocent Bebe Angel Aladdins, and to basically shoo away any questions related to that, even though anybody who lives near these encampments who understands that you're in an area that's prone to large fires and stuff catching on fire gets that these homeless people that have their little propane tanks, that have their little grills, that are cooking up their drugs, are obviously starting them. Everybody understands this, yet they refuse to address it.
Almost nothing has been happening, he says, when it comes to the prosecution of quality of life crimes under previous DA George Gascon. While arson prosecutions did increase, our analysis of the data for overall crimes like these, including arson, trespassing, drug possession, and loitering, shows prosecutions fell to around 25,000 under Gascon from nearly 250,000 4 years before, a drop of 89%.
He's been starting fires.
And neighbors,
his actions are much more dangerous,
have felt the effects.
Potentially going to be causing catastrophic damage to.
And by the way, it's not speculation that there is a cover-up. Again, on February 21st of this year, it was reported on Fox 11 that high-ranking fire officials are told specifically to downplay and deflect from questions about whether or not homeless people are the origin point of the particular fires that they're dealing with, even if they know for sure it was homeless people. Quote, even when high-ranking fire officials know for a fact how a fire was indeed connected to an encampment or an unhoused individual, they are not to say that. This was said again on the February 21st broadcast. They are supposed to say it's under investigation, close quote. Now, by the way, this is something that angers a lot of these different fire officials because they understand that they're essentially being used as political tools in order to cover up for this problem. And part of the reason that is speculated in this article from Ana Kasparian is the fact that they don't want to get rid of the encampments because so many people are invested in providing homeless services to said encampments. So they don't want public opinion of them to be changed. They want you to view them as innocent Bebe Angel Aladdins who just happen to be homeless, who happen to be experiencing homelessness, who happen to be unhoused through no fault of their own, and they don't have any underlying problems like drug addiction. Therefore, we gotta keep funneling the money towards them. But by the way, the people who are getting cut time and time again happen to be the fire department. Now, of course, we've talked about the $17 million cut that happened to the LA Fire Department. Now, a lot of people try to obscure this. They try to say, no, they actually got $50 million more, but let me explain how they're trying to hide in the ambiguity for the millionth time on this particular channel. So, there was a $17 million cut to what is known as the operational budget. This is how you hire civilian employees like mechanics in order to get trucks maintained and back on the road if they are in need of repair. However, during union negotiations, the union ended up winning $50 million in additional compensation. Now, that compensation is great for the firefighters. It goes to their pensions, it goes to their healthcare, it goes to their salaries. We all understand that. We all understand that they benefit from that, but that does not put mechanics in place in order to fix the trucks. That does not fix the staffing issues. That just makes sure that the current staff is being paid. And by the way, the Los Angeles Fire Department is actually understaffed compared to where they were in 1960, again, according to this wonderful article. And the reason why this is absolutely disastrous is because in 1960, Los Angeles's population was not 4 million people. It was 2.5 million people. So it's significantly lower back then than it is now. However, they had more firefighters, and compared to other departments across the country, they are definitely understaffed. Los Angeles currently has one firefighter per 1,000 residents. And again, without context, you might think that's perfectly fine, but it turns out other major cities typically have 2 firefighters per 1,000 residents or 1 firefighter per 500 residents. So already we have an understaffed fire department compared to other cities across the country. And of course, we have increased fire volume, not only because of the natural environment that is conducive to wildfires, but of course, due to policy that enables homeless encampments who are disproportionately lighting those wildfires. Again, they're contributing to about half of them. 50% of them, when you have a fire department that, compared to other major cities, is 50% understaffed. So what ends up happening as a result of this? Well, because you have all these encampments and you have all these petty fires, fire departments are oftentimes deployed to the same encampments over and over again, yet they can never identify the encampment as the problem, as the issue, due to the fact that there are political considerations that never allow them to call out the problem. In addition to that, firefighters often double as EMS services in a lot of major cities. So when there's a sick person or an overdose or something of the sort, guess what also happens? The fire department gets deployed there. Guess who is disproportionately having overdoses, having these kind of situations? These homeless encampments. So essentially, you have homeless encampments that are boosting the fires by 50%, so they're responsible for half of them. These homeless encampments average more than 2 911 calls an hour, again 54 a day, which is absolutely disastrous on an already understaffed fire department. So when they tell you about $50 million going to salaries for current employees, I understand that because they appear to be dramatically overworked, but they're not addressing the underlying issues again in the department. And it's absolutely crucial for you guys to understand that while they're cutting money from the fire department, again $17 million from their operational budget, what we end up finding out is that, of course, the money that is being diverted and spent on the homeless is not accounted for. There are no measurements for success for any of these programs, and a lot of times the money allocated is even too much to be spent on the homeless, so it remains unspent. The fire department got $837 million for fiscal year 2023 to 2024, but the homeless got $1.3 billion from the city of Los Angeles at that same period of time. Now again, if we saw any bang for our buck for the homeless population, you could, in theory, address some of the issues and ameliorate some of the issues that the fire department was facing by actually getting rid of these encampments with that $1.3 billion. But here's the crazy thing about the city of Los Angeles. They didn't spend nearly half of that money. An audit by the comptroller found that $513 million of the $1.3 billion allocated to the homeless, guess what? Wasn't spent. It's still there. So while you're forcing cuts operationally on the fire department, while they're chronically understaffed, while you're saying that we need to not hire mechanics and get those fire trucks back on the road, again, while the fires are ever increasing, while demand for their services is going up, you are enabling the homelessness with all of this taxpayer money that's funneled through nonprofits that, again, end up forming a homeless industrial complex, but you're not even spending all that money. You're allocating way more to the homeless than you actually intend on spending, so that money's just sitting there, and it can't be reappropriated to the fire department because that would make too much sense. So instead, you're proposing new and additional cuts for the fire department going into the next year. And again, those cuts are from the operational budget, not the compensatory budget. And people get what's going on. LAFD's honorary fire chief, Paul Scriviano, speculated that the city's failed approach was not a bug, but a feature of their leadership. Quote, "If the problem goes away, the money goes away," Scrivino said on the Wise Nuts podcast. Quote, "So the problem will never go away. This is the industry." And that's really the reality right here. Much like public education, where you get to hide behind the veneer of helping children, whenever you have something that is put forward as an absolute virtuous mission for the downtrodden, innocent little bebes who are suffering due to our systemic systems, that is rife for theft, rife for fraud, and that is exactly what occurs in the homeless services. And the thing is, the homeless people, they're mentally ill. These people have a bunch of different problems like drug addiction, so they don't know that the money that's being allocated to them is completely mismanaged, is being pocketed by all these different organizations. So it's honestly the perfect mark in order to have this. Now, of course, this article, there's so much more information in there that I definitely recommend you guys read. In fact, there was an incident where firefighters were trying to battle one of these blazes, and then all of a sudden, explosives started happening. Incendiary devices were there. Possibly they were propane tanks that ended up blowing up or something of the sort, and firefighters were seriously injured by these explosions. And again, we see this over and over again in the state of California. How many times have I covered these sophisticated homeless encampments that are multiple stories, where they tap the power line lines, they put up mattress walls. It's just a fire risk waiting to happen. And guess what? The fires do happen. It is not surprising that this is occurring. It's not surprising that California and Los Angeles are conspiring to cover it up. But the fact is, you need to know what they're hiding from you, because it is putting all these different residents in danger. Now, of course, those are just my thoughts. I want to know what you guys think about all this down in the comments below. If you like this video, then show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on the social media, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about this insane article from Ana Kasparian. Till next time.